We got a message from Mike Boaz. I think he says Boaz, probably Mike. Sorry, Mike, if I messed your last name up. He sent us a message after we were talking about the movies and inspiration and, like all the different visual things that influence the ways that we like. I'm just going to read the message because he wrote it better than I can say it. Funny that you would talk about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the aesthetics of James Bond in the same conversation. Ken Adam, known for the elaborate modernist sets in James Bond films, was also the production designer on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Huh.
There you go.
The film was actually based on a story by Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond, and produced by Bond producer Cubby Broccoli. That's crazy. I had no idea that there were that many connections between the two. I've seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but I don't remember much of it. I don't remember it standing out to me in any particular way. So I need to go back and watch it. But thanks, Mike. That's a pretty awesome connection.
Yeah.
That I did not know about. How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm finished my pool table, so it's smooth sailing.
It looks phenomenal.
It really
Everything
does look good.
from here on is gravy. That's it. I don't care about anything else.
Till next week.
How did the building a pool table stack up with your expectation of building a pool table?
I got a little bit of my proportions wrong, but overall the design is pretty good. I had some reckoning as an artist in this one because I really had some introspective moments. I talked to Jeff from Blatt Billiards, who came and put the felt on. We had kind of a heart-to-heart. I was all in on the pool table, thinking I was going to make this Western-style pool table with all this filigree, and that's really what was holding me up. I was really neurotic about getting into a design that I couldn't finish, as far as carving, as far as CNC files. I didn't know enough about the construction of a pool table to figure out where those designs were going to go and how they were going to interact with the shape. So somewhere along the way, I stepped back and I said to myself, I've never done this. Let me take a more basic approach and just get the construction correct. And while I'm constructing it, give it a little bit of grace in my particular style. And that's when I say, what do people expect from me? Wood and metal, industrial, a little bit of like whiskey barrel kind of style. And so I wrote those things down, and that's how I came to the design that I have now. I'm going to mutant cough.
Mutant cough.
And so name that episode Mutant Cough. That's how I came to the design, because I was really trying to jump in full force as if I've been doing this for 100 years. It's like, I don't have enough experience to build that type of pool table. Let me just get the dimensions right, and along the way try and make it look cool. And so then once I changed my approach, I was able to go into it a little bit more practically, with a little bit more practicality. And ultimately, Blatt loves my design. They said they really like it. They thought about a signature series. So I don't know what that means. It means maybe we'll sell one pool table in the next 10 years with my name under it. But I'm not banking on any of that. But I'm glad that it's done. And I hit the mark about 98% when it comes to details. When Jeff came, he said, you got this right, you got that right. It was like my high school shop teacher coming and grading. But he was really grading on, he loves the style, but he was really mostly grading on the technical details. There's a lot to it. But now that I know it, it's completely demystified. So if I had to do it again, there's several things that I know exactly what I would do. Slightly different, some mostly the same, but the education is phenomenal that I got from doing it. And like I said, you want to learn about something, build about it. You want to learn about how to make a boat, build a boat. You want to learn about how to make a pool table, build a pool table. And it was so I call it a success. I'm still editing the video. Hopefully it's going to be out this Friday or Saturday. And I'm moving along. It's like I'm not even through me and Jeff putting the felt on, and I'm at like 50 minutes. I just keep going back and chipping and chipping. It might be an hour-long video. I don't know. And at this point, who cares? Someone's going to watch it anyway. Put out a 2-hour video. Who cares?
That's the spirit.
Those are the videos that are good, that just blow up, though.
I know. It's like, what am I going to... I'm like, who cares? Whatever. I'm like, he's sitting here trying to chip. I'm like, let it be. Every clip I try and keep anywhere between 5 to 12 seconds. And I'm like, this clip is 60 seconds, 50 seconds long. That's too long, but I need all that information.
Are you teaching somebody to build a table?
It could be. I'll do a voiceover, but it's, my style. Everything's choppy and quick.
So with the house, you've done a couple of videos recently on the house. You have 2 out, right?
Yes, sir. I did 2. Yes,
okay.
sir.
And those are both pretty long, over 20 minutes or something?
I think so, yeah.
So how's that been? I mean...
They're okay. I mean, like my sweet spot is like 80,000 views now, and everything I do is like 80,000 or 300,000. There's no in between. But I had my last viral video. My last viral video was 4 months ago. I got about 700,000 views. And since then, my highest viewed video is about 300,000. Everything else is hovering around 100,000. The second house video is slowly creeping up. Like now that people are like, it's creeping slowly now. It's gaining more speed now than it did when it first came out a few days ago. But the comments is so positive that it makes up for the fact that nobody's watching. But no, like, again, let's think about it. Like if 80,000 people showed up in my backyard tomorrow to be like, we like your video, I'd be like, oh my God, everyone's here.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, could you imagine sitting in Wembley Stadium and it being packed and everybody's watching one of your videos? That's wild.
I'm obviously I'm obviously overwhelmed and grateful for whatever comes my way. But it's changing. And Dave, I noticed you're getting some crazy views on some of those internet product videos, like the one I commented on the other day. I mean, you're getting some great traction. It's great. It's funny too. You're really a funny commentator. Like you definitely deserve to be on like a YouTube channel.
Thank you. They're
I was going to say TV show, but TV show doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right.
You're doing great on your own.
That would be an insult. It's funny. So like once a month or so, maybe once every 2 months, I'll do these like I bought videos.
Yeah, they're great.
And
they're
not as satisfying as a project video because my heart is in making stuff with my hands. But lately we've been doing bigger projects and they just take longer. So I have to fill that space with something else that's just a little bit easier to film and edit. And I just kind of picked up on these I bought videos and they're really taking off and they actually feed off of each other. So when I release one, the other ones, like I got 17,000 views on a video that I put out a month ago because it's just the algorithm just loves them.
I watched the Temu video and then the next day I opened my computer and right away there you were, 2 more of them. Two more of them. Yeah.
So the algorithm has picked up like, oh, these are all similar videos. This one took off, so I'm going to shove all these other ones in everybody's faces. And they're fun to make. It's just not as satisfying as a project, but they just give me a little bit more time to put into the
honestly,
projects.
It feels like watching the Temu video, you're having fun. It's like a mental break from doing something more complicated, and you can see that. And you're having fun, and you and Dan kind of chit chatting about it. It's fun. It's amazing some of those price differences. It's crazy.
Yeah, as far as the Temu video, where we're actually comparing the ripoff to the knockoff to the real thing, and the price difference is just like phenomenal. And
one thing was like $150, and then the knockoff was $7.
Yeah, crazy. that was a little coping saw. And I knew it was going to be a polarizing video because, you're buying knockoffs. But I didn't realize how many people would say that the name brands are the ones ripping off people because they charge so much. And there's a reason for that. And I talk about that in the video of like, they've got years of research and development and it takes a long time to make these products. And it's easier for somebody to come along and rip them off. But a lot of people are saying like these name brands are huge ripoffs.
And I will say to that, being in the product business, everything you're saying is true. Obviously there's salaries to pay and all that other stuff, but there's no doubt it is literally just, let's just see how far we can take it. Okay. Oh, that's too, pull it back a little bit. That's all it's about. It's just like, let's see how far we can go with it, especially if it's direct order. It's like, push it up. You know what? 60? Make it 69. That sounds like
right.
I've been in those meetings and it's just like, all right. So
cool.
The companies do gouge when they can. I mean, why not? This is how you make money.
Well, I mean, that's capitalism. That's like everything is going to be. If you were making a table, and you were going to sell that table, you would figure out how to try to get
when anybody tells me a price,
as you possibly think you could.
I was going to say, when somebody tells me a price about, I'm charging this customer, what do you think? I'm like, tell me what. I'm like, you kidding me? Double that, and then add 5%. I was like, really?
Well, so a friend of mine owned a piece of property here in town, and I'll be really general about this, but he owned a piece of property and he was kind of trying to sell it, but not really. Like, it wasn't a huge priority. And this other developer in town came to him that he knows and said, like, give me a number. And so my friend was like, I don't know, like, I'm not in a huge hurry to sell it, so I'm just going to come up with this crazy number. And he told him, and the guy was like, sold. Just right there. And I'm talking in the, like, very high amounts of money. And so my friend was telling me, he was just like, it was crazy. Like, I should have doubled that number and then been able to let some go. So sometimes our crazy number, the one that we think is the ridiculous over the top, to somebody else is not necessarily an over the top number.
Well, I mean, you got to remember the first times that we did sponsorships years ago. We would throw out a crazy number, and then somebody would be like, okay, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen so much now because it's a little bit more normalized and everybody has systems in place. But there was a time 8 years ago, you'd throw out a crazy number and somebody would say yes, and you're like, I'm set for this month.
Yeah. And the crazy number, like the fact that it's a crazy overall number, has a lot to do with your perspective, where you are, what you need at any given time. So, if we go back to the tool thing, like, a company that is struggling to get by has a different idea of what a crazy number is than a company that's just like rolling in money or doing well, but has a huge amount of potential research for the next thing. And, there's a lot of different times and different reasons, and those cross over in different ways. So can't be too mad at those companies for charging a lot for their tools.
Can I ask you a question quick? Where did Temu come from, and why do I get 5 emails a week asking?
5 emails a week.
Many.
I'm getting 5 emails every morning when I wake up. There are from Temu.
I get at least two, 1 to 2 a day from them, asking them for me to be on their team to, like, sell their products.
It is bonkers.
I didn't know what it was until I saw your video. I made that joke, but it was true. I'm like, I didn't know what the website. I thought it was their own original. I didn't even know what products they sold.
Right.
I thought it was a system to, like. I had no idea. I didn't know what
it's
it was.
like. It's basically like an Amazon kind of.
Bang Good, Amazon. Yeah, it's just, now I know that now.
It's direct from China, so a lot of the stuff is just, you're buying through there. Just like Amazon, instead of them fulfilling it, you're buying it directly from the people who are manufacturing it through Temu. I assume that's how it works.
It is guaranteed I will wake up in the morning and there'll be at least one email from a laser company asking me to review a laser, and at least one email from Temu asking me to review their products. Yeah.
Yep.
And are you guys getting the emails from giant corporations? It's like, for instance, the latest one I got was from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, you might know our brand KFC. And it's this whole long dissertation. It's like, we're really looking forward to working with you. And every email ends with .cz. It's like, so-and-so at .something.cz. And I always write back, yeah, I'm really interested. But they never reply anyway. I always try and get them baited. I try and bait them into a situation. But they never write back. I just want to have a funny conversation with them, but they never.
Earlier on, I got one of those. Not earlier. I mean, like a few months back, I got one of those, and I can't remember what the company was, but it was actually, it made a lot of sense. I'm like, oh wow, this is really cool, And so I sent it on to my agent, and then he responded and said, look at the last, the domain that it's in, and then he listed out several of these different top level domains, and it was like CZ and KR, and there's a couple of them. And he was like, basically anything from these we know are some sort of a weird scam that we can't figure out what it is they're trying to scam. They don't represent the companies, but it's a weird, there must be some sort of a down the path thing where they're like, they want you, here, just sign into our system with your YouTube credentials or something like that, and then they steal your account, I guess. I don't know, but that is definitely going around. David, what have you been up to lately?
So we got 2 projects on the bench right now. I think last week or whenever we recorded last, we were talking about the stereo build that is still going on. And then something I'm trying to finish up this week is we found 2 like old mid-century modern end tables, side tables. It's like the little side table that goes next to a chair that's got like a second layer, if you can visualize that. And I found a pair of them for $75 on Craigslist, and they're old and beat up. And so I bought them, and now I'm converting them into a desk where I'm like extending the legs and then adding a middle portion, so it looks like this really cool mid-century modern desk.
Wow.
And I've got in the second layer of these little side tables, there's like this little cubby hole, and I'm turning that into a I'm putting like grill cloth on there and putting computer speakers inside there. So it has like a vintage guitar amp look right there. And then I've got like a built-in phone charger and cord management and a power supply all built into these really old side tables. And I'm really happy with how it's coming out. And I really, really underestimated how much sanding I would have to do. I'm not a refurbish kind of guy, so I don't know a lot about refurbing old furniture. And there's all these little nooks and crannies, and it just takes hours for each one to get all the finish off. And I thought I could. It's made out of I think it's a white oak. It's definitely an oak of some sort. And I thought I could just sand off all the varnish that's on there and then maybe stain it. I don't normally stain, but I thought I could stain it to get a little darker look. But I'm not sure if I've sanded good enough to stain it, because if there's any varnish left anywhere, that stain is not going to be out. So it's.
Have you tried like chemically stripping that stuff?
I have not. I've generally tried to avoid the chemicals, and maybe I need to look into it, but yeah, it's been a fun project, and it's quite the transformation. So I'm really excited about this video.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to avoid the chemical stuff as well, but when you have a lot of detail stuff that's hard to sand, sometimes using one of the citrus stripping agents that's not super caustic is just a way to break up that top layer of varnish around little details, which will then make it easier to sand, and the citrus ones that I've used, the stripper, it's like called citrus stripper, I think. It's worked pretty well, and it doesn't, it's safe enough that you can touch it with your hands, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that it's not gonna like mess your skin up. It's not
and it's
lacquer.
It's not gonna stain the wood.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I'd verify anything. Don't take my word for it, but I've had good luck with those in the past.
I've just this morning before we hit record, I bought on Home Depot's website a little corner sander, because that's one of the things that's really gotten to me, because my random orbit sander can only get so far, and then I got to hand sand the corners. So I just it's ready for me to pick up here, so I can go get it after this podcast. A little Ryobi corner sander, and then I also ordered off of Amazon these 3M. It's like a flapper, but it's like a 120 grit little flapper that you can put on your drill to get into some things. I really, really dislike sanding, and because it just takes so long, and it's just it's not rewarding at all. So I will buy anything that I can to make that process easier.
What helps sometimes in a corner is I take like a brand new razor blade and I crazy glue it to a stick, and I make like a pull scraper.
Yeah.
You just got to be careful. Sometimes it pays to sand off one of the points.
The points,
to dig it, because otherwise, if you go to the drag it, that point will scrape along the corresponding wall, and you not realize it. So, if you put it at like a 2-degree angle, so you can get it buried into the corner, and then you just scrape and pull out.
I'm definitely doing that.
That's why I keep old razor blades around.
So, on the other project, the speaker project, I want to run something by you, and I don't necessarily think this is the right way to go about it, but I think it could be interesting for the video. Is the speaker stands that I'm making. I welded 2 pieces of rectangular sheet metal, 1/8-inch sheet metal, and there's like 2 1-inch posts connecting these 2 things. So it basically looks like a pedestal. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like a plane connected by 2 rods. Yeah, exactly. and I don't want any of the metal showing, so I'm going to cover everything up with wood. On that middle column, I'm going to wrap around some walnut veneer. It's like 24 inches tall, and it's paperback, so you can bend it around. And I'm going to wrap it around the front and then pinch it off in the back, so it has like an airplane wing type look to it. Yeah. And when my brother and I were brainstorming, the easy way to go about filling that void in there so it's not dentable would be to cut out sheets of that pink insulation foam. So it's got something to hold on there. But to make it a little bit more interesting, and I think will work, but my Discord members have said this is, you're looking and you're facing a disaster in the face.
I have an idea.
I was filling it with expanding foam, like
nope.
Don't do that.
Nope.
I want to do it just to do it, though.
I mean, you would have to completely like lock it in on the outside so that the shape wouldn't change, because
the
that stuff
expansion would
starts
only
expanding.
come out of its open ends.
Well, if you did a layer at a time, if I just a little bit and it kind of builds up.
No.
Then
it's you get on everything. You get fingerprints and it's. My suggestion is take a bunch of scrap wood and just rip it into 1 by 1 or 3/4 by 3/4 dowels, or use dowels and fill it with just scrap wood, linearly shaped.
The dowels is a good idea. Sticks from the yard.
Yeah, no, you'd want them all straight because you want that like perfect geometric shape.
That's
so all
interesting.
linearly long sticks. I'd say sticks, but if you could just go by, I don't know how much volume it takes up. Like, does it take up as much volume as, say, like a gallon jug or less? Like in the cross section.
Yeah, I would say a gallon jug is pretty accurate, and then 24 inches tall.
Yeah, because I have enough scrap. Every time I rip, I always, because if it's a piece of walnut or whatever, I always save that like last inch or 2 inches. So I would have enough scrap laying around to be able to fill that void with, throw some, stack them together, or maybe wet them down with Type Bond as you're putting them together, and just stick it in there, or put it together, stick it in there, shape the wing you want, and then pour some Type Bond on the end that's of the exposed.
That's a really good idea. I still just for the mishap opportunity, I still may try the expanding foam just to prove to myself it won't work.
I probably told this story here years ago. The shower in my New York City apartment. One day I bumped the wall with my butt, and all of a sudden there was a big dent in the wall. What I didn't know is the entire wall was rotting. Well, it was regular sheetrock behind the tiles. So one day I peeled it all back into, it was maybe a 2-foot square of nothingness. It was just rotted sheetrock. And so I put all the tiles together on the ground and I taped them. Then I had a sheet of tiles, like a 20-inch square of tiles, and I spray foamed all inside the crack. And I put the tiles on the wall, and I just put tape, clear packing tape, all over it. And then came back the next day. Well, I came back that evening because I went downstairs to work and came back up, and there was a big belly on the wall. It was like, weep wall.
It pushed out that much, huh?
There was a couple of compartments that didn't drip down. It stayed in that stall and was pushed out. So my bathroom wall looked like Freddy Krueger was pushing through it with his butt from the other side. I just left it like that until they finally did the whole shower stall over. I was in that apartment for 13, 14 years.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do the foam thing, maybe have a backup. I don't know. I don't see that going well, but
yeah,
I think cutting the pink foam and stacking it up to have to fill the volume but not have a rigid structure in there, that seems like a pretty good option.
Foam is the same thing as I was suggesting. Foam would probably work, but then it could still be dentable if you use the scrap wood. Well, here's another idea. You could take the wood, lay it out in take a bunch of, say, 1/2-inch by 1/2-inch squares, 2 feet long, lay them all down, tape them on one side so it's those doors that everybody's been making, those doors that wrap around.
Tambour.
Yeah, tambour door, and then put it on the inside of your veneer up to where you need it. Put some glue, then shape it, and then this way you just have this way you're not filling the entire void, you're giving yourself some structure.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. Wow.
Or you take the pink foam, layer up pink foam. You have that, the teardrop shape, whatever.
Yeah, that's another idea.
And then you take a handful of painter mixing sticks from Home Depot, and you glue them to the outside of it, and then put your metal on top of that. So you have a semi-rigid structure.
That's really interesting. You know what? I might do one stand one way and the other stand the other way, and just kind of compare. That could be a really interesting twist in the video.
So if you do the thing with the tambour door inside, which is scrap squares, and then once that dries a little bit, then you could do your styrofoam expanding foam inside that.
Why? Why would you? We lost David. He quit. He's like, that's it. I'm out of here.
No, the only reason I would say this way it would expand up and down. It would be secure from. I wouldn't touch that expanding foam.
Yeah.
That's only to keep from mice getting in the house. That's the only thing that stuff is good for.
Even then, they chew through it.
As I say, just to slow them down.
Yeah.
We thought you got mad and quit.
No, yeah. I hit the wrong cough button. There's a big red leave button. I hit that.
Well, anyway, let us know how that goes. I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. I've been working on the Gia some more. Been out doing a little bit of stuff at the farm. And then doing a bunch of non-work stuff the last week, so I haven't been super productive. But I've also been struggling with a design, and we didn't have a topic, and this is kind of the topic I wanted to throw at you guys.
Oh, right. This was the secret topic.
Yeah. So, but also, before we get to that, I had a phone call a couple days ago, and I called the shop that has the engine for my Land Cruiser.
And they said, who is this?
No, I've been talking to this.
They answer with a different name.
No, I know Jerry. I know Jerry well now. Jerry had surgery recently. He's doing fine. He's back at work and everything. But I know Jerry from being on the phone. So I called after taking a couple weeks off of calling, because I was like, I would call Mondays and Fridays every week and just be like, look, man, I'm going to bug you until this thing is done. So I called the other day. And he said, you didn't call me last week. And I was like, yep, trying to give you a break. And he goes, well, your engine's done. And I'm like, no. Yes! So the engine is done. And I'm like, awesome. You tell me what time to have my car there. And he goes, 2 weeks from Friday. I'm like, no. And they just don't have a spot in the shop, to actually get it in. But
Dave, the engine is done.
The engine is done.
I heard. I had to step away for a second, but I was listening. This is exciting.
It's done at the machine shop. The guy, the shop that I'm working with is going to pick it up. They're going to have it there on hand. He said, bring it on this date. Bring the vehicle on this date. So I've got that scheduled with the tow truck. So they're going to pick it up at noon on a Friday. It's going to be taken there. They're going to start on it Monday morning. Like, there.
Don't forget to take your pipe bender off of the bumper.
Oh, yeah. No, it's the other one. It's the other Cruiser. Yeah. But man, I'm so excited about that. Even being like, it could still take another several weeks. I have no idea how quickly they're going to be able to turn it around. He said a couple of days, but whatever. But I'm just excited that part of it, the big holdup, is done, and so now it's moving forward. And anyway, I know I'm more excited about that than anybody else would ever be.
No, I'm excited now.
And okay, so here's a funny little. One of the reasons that I'm excited about that is last night, my wife took one of my kids to, he had 3 soccer trainings in a row, like from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. He just had stuff. So she took him and did all of that stuff. My other son had a soccer game at a different place. And my daughter wanted to go to the soccer game. I wanted to watch him play. So I picked her up, drove to the game, and we could only stay at the game long enough until the sun started going down, because I had to drive home because I don't have any headlights on the green Cruiser. So that's the situation where I'm like, I need a car. I need a car that I can drive in the rain. That would be cool. Driving when the sun's not fully shining, that would be cool, because like I don't have headlights. I don't have windshield wipers. It leaks. So yeah. Anyway, I'm excited. Moving on. So here's the idea. Here's the thing that I'm struggling with. I have an idea for, I'm going to keep it general so you don't apply to my idea, but I have an idea for a mechanism. And the mechanism is cool. I see a use for it. And basically, I need a piece of furniture, I need a thing, and I want to apply this idea to that need. So thinking about the functionality of like, yes, I can take this idea and I can do it functionally in this way on this piece of furniture. And then I go to Fusion and I have to design that piece of furniture. So the thing I'm running into is I built in Fusion or on paper, whatever, I built the idea. It works. I know how I would put it together and what I need to do it. But then you have to build a container around it that actually is interesting to look at and is something that somebody else may want to build or want to be inspired by or something. And so I started designing this piece of furniture, and I got back stepped back when it was done, and I'm like, that's ugly. And it's only ugly because I built around a function versus the other direction. So how would you guys approach that? If you had a function that you were a mechanical, it has to do this thing, would you just try to build the mechanics first and then design around it in a way that was visually your opinion?
You got to weigh it out. You got to weigh it out. What's more important? What's the primary goal of what it is you're trying to do? And then that should be the lead, in my opinion. If, for instance, if it's the function that you're having trouble applying to this design aesthetic, I would let the function, again, form follows function, let the function be the leading factor, and then design around that, and then see how you could disguise it so it's not a blatant machine. See how you could disguise the function into something more pleasantly aesthetic.
So I'm a firm believer in form follows function. Mm-hmm. David, do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with it. I think my mind just goes to design first and then function, and then after it doesn't function correctly, then we have to compromise somewhere. But I think my
compromise
mind,
throughout. You're gonna have.
Yeah. My mind thinks in design, and I'm not very good at the engineering function part of things. So that's I think that's the only reason I choose design over function, and then just kind of figure it out as I go. But I will say, so going back to the speaker stands that I'm building, I don't remember the exact dimensions, but the metal part of it is like 30 inches tall, and this veneer that I'm going to wrap around it is only 24 inches wide. So there's this gap that I have to figure out how to fill, and I'm using I could make the stand smaller, and it would allow me to create the shape that I want a lot easier. It would actually save me a lot of time, but I'm using this gap that I have to fill as a way to enhance the design. So now it's not like sometimes you go into a project and you can design whatever you want, and there's too many possibilities. But now there's these parameters that I have to design around, and that actually helps me get a little bit more creative when it comes to the design, because I have to work around this thing.
So you got to figure out how to fill that gap with something productive, something useful, and also integral to the overall concept.
Yeah.
You can't just put like a shoebox under it and say, I just needed it up in the air.
Right. So
you can.
You can if you have a good reason for it. Like people always, my students would always say, "What is it okay if I do this?" Like just this is what I would do with my students. They would show me something, and they would have some lazy, for instance, they would give me a picture of the thing they built on top of a shoebox, and I'd be like, "Why is the shoebox there?" They're like, "Oh, so it was be up near the light." I'm like, "So now I'm reading your object attached to a shoebox you're as artists, we're communicators. We communicate images to people. We invent images to show other people. And so you're communicating to me that this is attached to a shoebox. It's either that, I'm either reading that as like completely avant-garde art, which is genius, or you're just purely lazy. I said, both of them are going on inside my head right now. And so whatever it is you want me to know, if it's a song and you want me to interpret it, that's fine. But if you want me to know exactly what you're thinking, you need to make a more solidified decision.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm trying not to give this thing away. I'm trying to figure out how to ask more about this without.
It's a lawnmower with a couch on it. No,
it's a piece of furniture, but
It's an easy chair inside a porta potty.
I don't know. Whoa. It would make more sense to put a toilet inside of an easy chair.
It's a table with a fish tank underneath it.
No, I have thought about that as well. But so, I mean, it's weird because I think, especially a furniture designer, as a designer, that's not my skill set. It's not my strong suit at all. So even if I was just designing a piece of furniture just for the pure function of the table or of the desk or of the bed or whatever, I still struggle with making that look good differently than you all both would be able to design something that just looks good. People objectively would say, like, that looks great. So that's one struggle with me anyway. It's not where my skills are the strongest. And then trying to kind of backfill that design around a thing that has to be there is, I don't know, it's weird. I'm not sure why I'm having so much trouble with it, to be honest.
I'm disagreeing with you on a couple of things. I think you need to give yourself a little bit more credit when it comes to design, because when you've made some really beautiful side tables and beds and all kinds of furniture that in the end looks fantastic.
Thank you. I think it's very it's plain though, and part of my trickery in design is doing. Okay, so here I'll lay this bare for you. So part of my trickery in design is the more modern, the more simple it is, the less I have to rely on it being good. This is the same way I play guitar. So the more I can rely on a sound or a little habit, the less I have to rely on actually being a good guitar player, because I'm not a good guitar player. There's
so many people, many amazing designers will say good design is removing all the unnecessary stuff, and so good design is the core, is the most simplified, especially when it comes to graphic design. The best graphic design is just removing everything that doesn't need to be there.
Okay, all right. So maybe there's a difference in thought here then about good design as a general term versus targeted design. So if you have a particular style you're going after, let's just take mid-century because it's something we all have some familiarity with. If I'm trying to design a kitchen table, to make a functional kitchen table that has no particular genre, no particular influence, it's just like a nice looking table like that. Sure, the simpler the better. The fewer details, the less you're going to apply it to this style or that style. That works. If you're trying to make a mid-century dining table, then there are patterns to adhere by. And if you don't adhere by those patterns, it doesn't get to the goal of that particular style. And maybe that's what I'm talking about without realizing it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of is I want it to have a certain style, feel, something, but I don't know how to enforce the details of that style on this particular piece of design. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you do that? You just dissect?
You got to experiment.
Yeah.
But you could also sometimes, think about how often you see something and go, oh, that is an X. And then when you really go back and look at it, there's only one thing about it that makes it X. So you might be thinking you need to put 1, 2, 3, 4 design elements to create mid-century modern. When in actuality, maybe all you need to use is like a blonde wood with like a rounded edge. You know what I mean? Like just like maybe one accent might be all it needs to give you that spin that you're looking for, as opposed to, okay, then I need to also add I'm not great with mid-century, but yeah, maybe I need I'm thinking like Sputnik type legs. Is that that's kind of like, like maybe do you need the Sputnik legs? No, maybe if they were just rounded and tapered, maybe that's all, so maybe as designers and we're trying to communicate something, we don't always need to communicate it so blatantly and people will still get the message clearly.
So like you infer a style through a small detail rather than just like It is,
is
100% walnut and beveled
This
edges.
is an extreme example, only because I'm looking around my desk and something's giving me this example. If you make a roll top desk and you give it camouflage, it immediately looks like it's a military thing.
Oh, okay.
Like
right.
a chalk,
Yeah.
You haven't done anything to it physically. It's still just an oak. I'm sitting at an oak roll top desk that I bought years ago at a flea market. So if it was a certain color, you immediately make it this thing. I didn't have to give it tactical doors. I didn't have to put, anything on it. So it's just an extreme example of one little simple element could completely put you in a category.
I really love borrowing ideas from something that's completely unrelated. So the side tables that we're turning into a desk, I'm pulling in inspiration from 50s Gibson guitar amps for a desk. And to me, those two things are completely different. And I can actually steal this idea, put it on here, and maybe nobody will make that connection. And now I have what, quote unquote, an original idea.
Right. That's cool. My design teacher, Richard Wild at School of Visual Arts, he was the design director for forever. Anyway, he's retired now, but Richard Wild, you can look him up. He was the king of the mashups. It's like, but he didn't. It wasn't his original thing, but it was just what he would put on us as students. He's constantly saying, take this and take that. Take a chocolate Easter bunny and like a Jesus Christ statue. Now you have a chocolate Jesus Christ. It's like that's a mashup. And what does that communicate? What are you trying to communicate? And you take a table and an amp, mash them up, you end up with something completely new. What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to say? So that's one thing that I always keep in mind.
So that's both of those points are really interesting, which makes me think that maybe I'm trying too hard to inflict a single design style on something. And if I can't get it right, it's never going to be that. I can't. If I can't get it, it's never going to be right. So maybe I don't try to get it so much.
What if? Let me ask you a question. So let's just say you're trying to make a lawnmower. Just as an example, you're making a lawnmower as a easy chair, right? It's a zero turn lawnmower with the easy chair. Chris Zepp made that for a TV show. Now you're trying to impose the easy chair onto the lawnmower. And that's where you're having a problem because it may be, but it might be ultimately more interesting if you just completely abandon that and make the lawnmower design overpower the easy chair. So instead of leather, there's only a little bit of leather in the right spots, but the rest is mechanical, rivets, screws, high graphics. I'm thinking of like an orange thing. So you're letting the mechanical take over the furniture design more, and that might ultimately just be more interesting. Maybe not. I'm just saying it's just when you think in extremes, when you're trying to make decisions, you're like, what is the more overpowering thing? Which might be more interesting if it takes over versus what I'm thinking, what I'm assuming should take over. And that's what always happens whenever I work with students or other people. They're like, I'm down this road, and this is the road I'm on. And I'm like, okay, what's the goal? The goal is to this. I'm like, okay, this is the road you're on only because that's where you started. You don't have to stay on this road. You can go any road you want. And then when you slap them in the head and go, you can do this way, that way, that way, or that way. Does that make sense? It makes a lot of sense. You freed me up. Now I have more of a freer approach. Because people step on a path, they buy the right material that they think works for that idea. Like, I got all this leather. I'm like, we use it for another project. Don't let that leather, simply because you spent a few $100s, force you into a design you're not feeling comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Something that's been a huge shift in the way I design over the last year or two is I think I've been kind of lucky up until recently of like the inspiration will come to me. It'll come to me in the shower. It'll come to me as I'm going to sleep. That doesn't happen anymore. I think there's too many things happening in my head. I just set aside 15, 30 minutes. Like, I'm going to come up with the design during this particular moment in time, and I will force the inspiration. I will force it. Like,
yeah, it's like writing. They say with writing,
yeah.
you have to sit down and stand at the computer, even though you don't have any ideas. You got to like leave out some time. And I don't do that every day, but I know writers need to do that every day. But when it's time to really approach, like for instance, the pool table, I had to I was thinking on it too long. I was a little stifled. But you do have to block out time.
Okay, so I was thinking, this is really weird. This happens a lot, but I was thinking about something entirely different this morning. And I came up with a little saying to help myself figure out this thing, that my solution was actually the problem. And it applies here too, I think. Sometimes, and I think this is what you were saying with like the leather example, like the solution that you decide on early on becomes the problem that you're then trying to solve. You're trying to work around the fact that you created a situation to work around, you know? And so like in this case, I am having trouble with the design of a thing based on a solution to a mechanical problem. And I'm stuck because I'm trying to work around that thing. So maybe it's just a matter of rethinking that solution to the mechanical problem, so I have another option to explore. You know, because if you always start at the same spot, you're only going to be able to get so far. So maybe I just need to start somewhere else. And I think with the leather example, it's the same kind of thing. If you decided you were going to use leather for a project, and that has to be, you're only going to be able to wander so far down any path because it always has to come back to leather. But if you can get rid of the leather solution and allow yourself to have a different solution, you're not necessarily creating the same problems for yourself. I need to think on that. That's interesting.
And it's also important to just freestyle, blue sky. Say, I'm going to go this way. You know what? Let me abandon that completely and try and go this way. Like I said, it's really important to try extremes and everything.
Well, one of the things. Go ahead.
I was the change in direction in freestyle is really hard for me, because if I tell myself I'm going to go down this direction, and I bought the leather for this project, like, man, I'm going to force it. Like it takes a disaster for me to pivot, and I think this is the first time I'm actually thinking about this right now. I think for me, I got to learn to allow pivots to happen a little bit more. Maybe me just saying this out loud is that turning point for me.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, but it takes a lot of gumption to just say, forget all this. Let's just go in a whole nother direction. But sometimes that's what you have to do, and you could always pick it up later in another circumstance of design.
Yeah. I think another one of the considerations I'm having in this particular situation is that I always try, for better or worse, I always try to figure out if I'm going to make something, can I make it in a way that is reasonably accessible for other people? And that's either so that they can just replicate it, or we can make plans for it to sell, or, but when you start to consider outside of the thing itself, when you consider like plans or, certain person with certain tool set being able to replicate it, or anytime you start to consider those things, it adds another layer or multiple layers of like constraint to how far you can push something, or the materials you would use, or the tools that you would use, or whatever. And so I like the fact that I get to do that I get to try to make things accessible when I can for people. But it also definitely inflicts a lot. On this one, I know that I've redesigned this thing a couple of times because I'm like, well, yeah, but if it uses 3/4 inch material.
Have you actually started the physical process of making this?
No.
There's your problem. No. You just got to start.
And like work backwards, like start on building and then adjust the design based on.
This is just Jimmy's advice that he gives every podcast. It's just
get started.
Just get started. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible, and I do enjoy just having a general idea and figuring it out on the go. It's not always an efficient thing to do, and that's something that I tend to like efficiency, although it doesn't always work out. But
do you still upload to the second channel?
Not really. I mean, we haven't in a long time.
I'm wondering if, like, sometimes we think about, because I have two channels, and I think about the first channel first, of course, because that's the moneymaker. What if you built this thing for the second channel, where it's just completely experimental. You learned all your lessons, and then the polished one is part 2 on the main channel, which lives as its own.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea. Never build anything twice. That'd be weird.
I know, right?
What would I do with 2 of them? Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, it's funny. I'm revisiting. I can say this now because it's gonna. This weekend, I'm going to Derek's daughter's wedding in Maine. It's gonna be far drive. But he said, "Can you make? Because do you have time to make something for the wedding? Anything? Because my daughter would be honored if you could make her something, even just something small, as a gift." And I said, "Let me think about this." And I said, do they have anything to put the wedding cards in?" He says, "No." I go, "What if I made another little treasure chesty log thing?" And he goes, "That would be good. I always wanted you to visit." Derek has always reminded me. He's like, "Remember that video you did? You should do it again." He's always reminding me to do things again. And so this week I made a treasure chest that was like a proper treasure chest that had like stuff hanging around the shop. And then I made a treasure chest that was in the shape of a log that was a round log. So this time I made a treasure chest that is out of a log but in the traditional shape. And this time I'm using riveted steel, where like the steel band will wrap and take the shape of each one of the straps. I'll show you guys pictures right now.
Wow.
And I worked on it all day Monday and all day yesterday, and I'm going to try and finish it because I got to take it with me when I leave tomorrow because it's such a far ride. I'm going there with my friend Rachel, and we're going to get there tomorrow evening. I don't even know when the wedding is. All I know is I have to be back here for Monday morning because I'm shooting a segment for Ask This Old House. So the whole weekend's going to be shot. So I got to do everything by tomorrow night is what I'm telling you, including finishing building this, and I'm showing you guys this now. But this is an idea of a revisit. A revisit. Yeah, this is going to be a video, obviously, what you could see. And this was all day yesterday, shaping the steel to wrap around this organic shape. It started out as a proper log. It started out as this that I got right from the graveyard house.
Huh.
So chainsawed it up and hand carved out the inside. I didn't have to do the bicycle that night because I had to hand carve all that out. So figured I got my carving.
Chisel and hammer?
Yep.
Is that all chisel and hammer? That's a lot of work.
Yeah, about a lot of it. And then at one point, I was afraid to go at the chainsaw with it because I was afraid if I slipped, I'd cut through the side. And so I gently went at it with the chainsaw, and then I got scared. I did nick the side, so I had to make my sides a little less fat. So it is mostly chisel and I used that thing, whatever it's called, the vibrating tool to cut down the sides.
Oh.
So as I cut down the sides like a couple of inches and then chisel up to it and then cut down and chisel up to it.
We call that a zerp zerp.
Yeah, the zerp zerper. So anyway, so I revisited that idea. And it's funny, like when you talk about inspiration. So here, this is the pool table where the steel flaps over, and I'm really intrigued with this idea for years. And it's the same thing here, where you see the steel is flapping around each one of the joints. And today I'll grind it and clean up all the side welded corners and stuff.
In the Instagram photos and videos of the pool table, that's the first thing my eyes saw was that overlapping thing, and I was like, "That is."
Oh yeah, it's a subtle really detail, cool. Which I was afraid I was going to get
it's
lost.
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's inspired by a whiskey barrel. I just wanted the thing to have like a whiskey barrel band around it, and then I figured
that's cool.
It would be nice to break up the. I didn't want to buy really long steel, so I bought small pieces and then did that joint at each pocket. So there's one at each one of the fours, and then one on each one of the sides.
So that's a problem solving thing that turned into a design part of the project.
Yeah, and that's why I said to myself when I was like racking my brain trying to come up with the most coolest pool table that had like all this CNC filigree. I'm like, what is the simple thing? I'm like, just steel and metal. How can I incorporate steel? Steel isn't really necessary. This is really going to focus more on glue and wood because it's a Type-On sponsor. And I was like, well, let me just put a cell. And I actually would use the Type-On glue to glue the metal to the wood. Type-On cells are a construction adhesive, so I incorporated that into the build. Believe it or not, steel and wood glued with Type-On.
Well, thank you all for helping me with that. I don't know what I'm going to do next on it, but
I've learned it's easier to help somebody else with their problems than to solve my own problems.
You know what you should do?
I was
Just
talking with
a conversation like that.
Yeah, I was talking with another YouTuber on Zoom the other day, and it was just like, it's so easy for me to come up with ideas for somebody else, but it's so hard to come up with ideas for myself. And he was like, yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah, maybe it's just like a separation of like investment and like your own interests and stuff. It's just easier to...
I know my own limitations. I know what I have. And so I kind of design things around what I have. And somebody else, when they're giving me ideas, they don't know what I have. They're just like, do this. And then, and maybe I can't do that thing that they recommended, but I can come up with a version of that I can do, or I can problem solve and figure out how to do those things that I haven't done before.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's thank our Patreon supporters, because they are awesome and they support the show, which makes the show happen. So therefore they make the show happen. I think that's math. Big thanks to them for making this possible, for sticking around. And everybody over there gets the after show. We got a message from one of our patrons this week wondering why he wasn't in the show notes. And turned out he wasn't at the level that gets written in the show notes, but the confusion there is that everybody, even at the lowest level of support, gets the after show. So, you can do whatever's important to you, but everybody gets to listen to more of us if that's your thing. So big thanks to everybody over there at every level. But we've got a group of top supporters that I always want to call out and say thank you to. So big thanks to Corey Ward, Albers Woodworks, Works by Solo, Chad from Mancrafting, Chad's Custom Creations, Rich at Low End Designs, Odin Leather Goods, Sean Beckner, Scott Oram, the new Janky Workshop, Stu Morrison, Warren Works, Michael Menedjan, the Web Ranch Woodworks, and Chad Tree Creative. They're all funny. They're all getting on the Chad thing where they're modifying their name.
That's real good. That's real good.
That was really good.
Yeah.
So we've had Chad at Low End Design, then we have Chad Tree Creative. So we should rename our Patreon supporters the Chads. The Chads. Anyway, big thanks to them. If you wanna make a funny joke about your name and be in that list, you can go to patreon.com/makingit and help us out and get the after show if you want. And if not, just glad you're here. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have anything cool to recommend this week?
You should follow. She sent me a message today, and she's so sweet. We met at Workbench Con a couple times, and I just want to try and find her so I say her name correctly. But 4 Rivers on Instagram. She's okay. Let me find it here. Dave, talk for a minute because I'm going to find it.
Yeah. So I have recently found a huge YouTube channel, but I am absolutely in love with it. It's called Diary of a CEO, and it's just this host, and he interviews. Sometimes it's celebrities, a lot of times it's experts in a field. I think a lot of it revolves around health, but there's other experts on there. There's a couple AI ones that I think the video that brought me in, well, I needed something to have on in the background while I was working one day, and the algorithm suggested one of his videos, and he's interviewing some billionaire, so it's kind of in the background. I was like, well, that was a really good interview. He's really thoughtful questions. And then the next video that came up was an interview with Steve-O. I'm not a huge fan of Steve-O, but I'm very familiar with Steve-O. And I was like, I was just blown away by the interviewer's technique, allowing long pauses, very thoughtful questions. And it was just really good. And now I've just been on this rabbit hole of listening to their videos, but I listen to them on my morning walks now. And it's got me on this little health kick because I'm listening to health podcasts in my ear every day, and it's kind of keeping me on track. It's called Diary of a CEO. He's an amazing interviewer, just so good.
Cool. I found it. Her name is Hadil, and she's a woodworker. She's been at Workbench Con every year. We met there. And one thing I love about her Instagram feed is that she's been experimenting with carving wood. So if you go back to her feed where you can see her getting more and more adventurous with her carving wood, which I thought was really cool. She does power carving, and from just going from practical woodwork and furniture design to being more and more adventurous with the power carving. It's pretty incredible to watch someone's personal development like that. And she just experiments a lot, and she's a sweetheart. And then besides that, check out the Melly Mel Eminem rap battle. YouTube videos are hilarious. I talked about it before we started. I'm an old school hip hop guy, so I remember when The Message and White Lines came out. And now Melly Mel and Eminem are having a rap battle, which is really sad because Melly Mel is like coming at it from 1978. So check it out. It's very funny. All the reaction videos are hilarious.
I haven't really seen anything super new lately. I mean, like usual, I have not been watching anything, so I don't see anything new. But looking through Instagram, I have come across, I don't know how to say her name. Tamar from 3x3 Custom.
Oh yeah, she's incredible.
Is that how you say it? Okay, she's awesome.
Tamar, yeah, she's incredible.
Tamar?
I know I always say it wrong, so I'm not even going to try it. I've been told this.
So I apologize that I don't know how to pronounce names. It's just a thing I got. But 3x3 Custom, she makes awesome stuff, and has consistently made awesome stuff for a very long time. And it's one of those things that on Instagram, you get so used to seeing, there's another cool thing, and you're like, just you go on to the next. But I just opened Instagram and looked at something she was building. And I'm like, oh yeah, she's really good.
She really, really steps outside her comfort zone, and because of that, she's so skillful at this point because she just keeps experimenting and going deeper and more complicated and successful every time because she takes a really practical, level-headed approach to all of her design aesthetics. She's great.
But it also just reminded me how easily we get accustomed to people who are really good at something or really, they stand out in a certain way. Once you see them stand out, then it's not as unique, and it's easy to miss the fact that they continue to be good, continue to be unique. Yeah. And
she's invented a few products that are available at the Cat's Moses.
Yeah. So anyway, go check her out. It's good stuff. You guys got anything else?
I want to just remind everybody to come to Russellville, Arkansas, August 29th. I'll be there. We're having a hangout at the factory. Let me tell you what time it is. It's in Russellville, Arkansas, August 29th, 6 p.m. And I will say the address because Jordan didn't send me the address. I thought it was all in the same thing. I opened it up already to say the address. Anyway,
I can put it in the show notes if you just want to send it to me.
Yeah, all right. So, Russellville, August 29th. I'm going to be there.
August 20.
Be there.
What is it?
It's going to be there.
August 20.
Tuesday, August 29th from 6 p.m.
Okay.
Having a hangout, and we'll come see what we're doing. Come hang out. I'll be there. I'm trying to get Derek to come with me. So Derek might come with me. It'll be fun. And then I don't want to say their names because I'm going to say the names wrong and I'm going to save it for video. But 2 grave restorers are coming to the Graveyard House on the same day, like the way makers hang out, graveyard restorers hang out. So 2 big Instagrammers are going to come, TikTokers, and they're going to come and fix graves in the Graveyard House.
That's cool.
So
you're
that's
document
coming.
The process?
The day I come back from Arkansas, the next day we're going to do that at the Graveyard House. We're going to spend the day, maybe 2. And we'll see what we can do. We're not going to do them all, but we're going to pick a couple of ones that really need help. There's one that's going to tip over, and I'm so sad it's going to break. It is a big obelisk, and it is right at its. I should really prop it up so it doesn't fall. But really, in the winter when it heaves one more time, it's going to fall. It's right past its center of gravity. So that's one of the ones I want to work on right away.
Wow, that's crazy. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.